civilians and basement bums instead of those who truly need it. For the past several weeks have been fearful rumblings on both sides of the aisle about reforming Medicaid. But here's the bottom line. If we fail to act now and allow millions more working, capable adults to continue to freeload off Obamacare expansion, taxpayers will bear the burden of what will become a $1 trillion program. Obamacare significantly expanded Medicaid and is quickly bankrupting the program. Ironically, Medicaid expansion has shifted the resources away from the most vulnerable Americans, single moms, infants, and the disabled, in favor of work-capable adults.
Here with me to discuss the need for Medicare reform in the big, beautiful bill is Mark Harris, Congressman from North Carolina. Congressman, thank you for being here.
Steve, thank you for having me today.
Let's talk about that. The exploitation, I think is a good word, of Obamacare for a variety of different reasons. It was never about affordable care, even though they called it the Affordable Care Act. It was a whole lot different. It was an insurance bill, really. Where would you start in changing things?
Well, I think when, we have this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, we really feel like, at least that's how we're approaching it in the House of Representatives, to get this reconciliation bill across the finish line, get it onto the president's desk, hopefully by the 4th of July, and get our nation back on track. As you said, it's clear that Medicaid is going to be a big piece of this. And of course, I'm not on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and there are other people that are working on this diligently. But some of the things that I think are so important for us to understand is if we don't reform, if we don't make changes to this program, like adding work requirements and things such as that, this is going to continue to just sprawl out of control. And as I mentioned, when you've got a 30-year-old living in their parents' basement, and the federal government is picking up 90% of their health care, and they are very capable of getting out and working. And yet you've got a single mom who is expecting a child, and the federal government's only paying 50 to 70% of her health care, depending on where she is and what state she's in the country. The bottom line is that this program, if we get back to why it was started and the people that it was meant to be a safety net for, we have blown that completely out of proportion. And I'm just one who believes that we were sent there in November of 2024. We were given the trifecta with President Trump, a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, to do government differently. And this is a time that really and truly, if we don't step up and save this program, it will simply implode upon itself. And as I mentioned yesterday in that floor speech, $1 trillion, that's not sustainable.
Well, what's not sustainable as well, Congressman, is all of these. I think there's been something like 135, 140 executive orders and so forth. If this piece of legislation, one big, beautiful bill, if it doesn't make it through, it's all been a complete waste of time. The executive orders are all fine and well. They're being challenged in courtroom after courtroom, and they're losing, thankfully. But if we don't get these things codified, a lot of it will be for naught, won't it?
Well, in many ways it will be, because we're only one change in administration away from the stroke of a pen from a Democratic administration undoing everything that President Trump has sought to put in place. But I'm confident, Steve, I really am, that we're going to continue to work together. I mean, let's face it, I've said this time and again, the left was counting on being able to write the narrative that Republicans would not be able to govern, that we would splinter off, that we wouldn't be able to come together and move this across the finish line. And in case after case over the last 4 months, we have been moving legislation through the U.S. House. When people said we were going to splinter, Speaker Johnson and others have worked together and have been successful at that. And I believe that's one reason you see the left in such disarray, because they weren't counting on us being able to govern. So I'm confident when we get back next week, several committees are left. 7, not 8, I think, have already gone and got followed their instructions and gotten to where they need to be. And I think as we step into the next phase here in the next week, we're going to see a lot of good things happen. And then it's going to go to the Senate. And I'm really counting on the House and the Senate and the president leading this charge, that the leadership have worked very closely together to shepherd this bill, and I'm hopeful we're going to see it happen.
And Congressman, I hope you are as well. Look, I'm going to do a little history lesson for folks here. When I grew up, we all used the World Book Encyclopedia. You probably did too, to do book reports and reports on things. In the state of North Carolina, when you would look at the World Book Encyclopedia, it was known for textiles, among other things, the things that you manufacture there. All of that's gone now. All of that's gone. The things that North Carolina used to be known for are gone. So I want to focus on the tariffs and what Donald Trump is doing to reset the world economy. This weekend, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and others traveling to Geneva, Switzerland, to meet with Chinese and the delegation in the first talks between the U.S. and China. But I want to ask you, in your constituents there, east of Charlotte, in that district of yours, what do they think about the tariffs? Are they standing with Donald Trump? There's some pain involved. There's been adjustments in the stock market and so forth. What are people saying? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I would tell you that, yes, there is some pain involved. But the calls that I've received, the individuals that I have talked with in the business community that are feeling some of that pain have continued to say to me that we've got to stay the course. They understand. They understand the pain. They understand they're trying to do ways that they can work around it. But at the end of the day, they recognize the reason that we're doing this, and they recognize that President Trump is really stepping up. And of course, the deal that he announced yesterday with Great Britain, that was a huge step in the right direction. I would love to see one a week rolled out over the next 90 days. That would be pretty incredible, because they are sitting down with President Trump and his team. These countries are in line trying to level the playing field, if you will. And you're exactly right. When you look at my district, you go down 74 coming out of Charlotte, you go through Wadesboro, you go through Rockingham, you go through Laurinburg. All of these were areas that were just booming through textiles. And we were one bad trade deal away from losing all of that. And so there is confidence that that some things are going to come back, and we're going to see manufacturing hopefully return. And I think President Trump is taking the steps that need to happen. And at least for my district, in the District of North Carolina, people are willing to give him a chance, and they understand what he's trying to do.
Well, there's one person there. You mentioned the House and Senate need to get behind one big, beautiful bill and get it all the way through. But there is one politician gaining some attention nationally there. Tom Tillis is not well thought of by some constituents there in your state, sir. Has not stood with Donald Trump all the way through, and maybe is going to be primaried here. People are willing to stand with Donald Trump. What about Tom Tillis? Is he going to make it through?
Well, I've given up being trying to predict what's going to happen politically in our state. When you look at North Carolina, I do think that there's a lot of folks that have a lot of concerns and are talking about it, but I'm not sure what's going to happen. We have a state convention that's going to be coming up here in the next month. And I think Senator Tillis is going to have to make some decisions as far as what he is planning to do. Indications are right now he's planning to run. And we're just hearing whispers here and there about primary challenges, but nothing that I know for sure set in stone, outside of a few folks that have said they're going to jump in, but are not currently elected officials. So I'm not sure where that's going to go. We're trying to work right now with all our energy to get this one big, beautiful bill across the finish line. And I think everybody is going to breathe a sigh of relief once we can get this to the president's desk and get it signed.
I appreciate that, Congressman. I know it's a sensitive question, especially in the Tar Heel state, so I appreciate you being candid about that. One last thing before we go here today, and that is the escalation of hostilities between Pakistan and India. Everybody's watching, everybody's concerned, but we've seen this before. We don't need another war. We certainly don't need a war between two nuclear powers on this planet. What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, the administration has a very close relationship with the president of India or the prime minister of India. They've had conversations. I know Marco Rubio just a week or so ago reached out and hopefully was able to sort of calm things down from where they are. But then, of course, they have erupted. I'm hopeful that this administration is going to be able to continue to bring some calm to the midst of that storm, and that we don't need another war. You're exactly right. And I just think that we've got to use some really good negotiations there and let them settle things.
Yeah, I think people in this country voted for peace in Donald Trump, not for war. We'll see what happens. Congressman, I appreciate you being here on a Friday. Enjoy the weekend, sir.
Thank you so much, Steve. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you. All right. After the break, the first American Pope selected yesterday. Some happy with the outcome. Others have some reservations. I'll get the perspective, remember, of the White House Faith Office. In fact, the woman that runs it, when we come back. Yesterday, as you know, history was made. The election of the first American Pope, Cardinal Robert Prevost from Chicago, Illinois, will now go by the name of Pope Leo XIV. I've spoken to people who are happy about the decision, others who are a bit concerned. I've seen reports on this Pope being more conservative than what we previously saw with Pope Francis. I've also noticed that he is in favor of open borders, among other things, and not a fan of J.D. Vance or Donald Trump, from what I can gather on social media posts. But besides all that, the fact of the matter is that we now have an American Pope leading the Catholic Church with roughly 1.4 billion members worldwide. When it comes to policy, we'll have to see where it goes from here. Expect the unexpected, I guess. Here with me to discuss this from the White House's perspective is the senior advisor to the White House Faith Office, Paula White. Paula, nice to see you again.
It's so great to be with you, Steve, and with all your listeners. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms coming up, huh?
Yes, ma'am. Mother's Day comes Sunday, folks. Make sure you take care of your mom if she's still with us. It's an important thing to do. All right. Mixed returns, I would say, on the selection. Now, he was considered a dark horse. Was Father Bob, as he was referred to on this program yesterday by a man who knew him pretty well, the former ambassador to the Holy See. But he looks to be almost the hand-picked successor to Pope Francis, who by many accounts was very progressive, upset a lot of folks in the Catholic Church. But it's a big day for Catholics. It's a big day for America. I mean, like I said, mixed returns. What do you make of it?
Absolutely, Steve. Well, first off, we're very excited that he is the first ever American Pope. And our president often says we're bringing religion back. And boy, has God used this time, this administration, to exalt his name in unknown ways. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. And so we are seeing these firsts, these unprecedented. I think we got to look at a few facts. Number one, we see that people are returning to church in unprecedented numbers and scores. Young people, specifically, young men. We see Bible sales up 22%. We see this resurgence, renewal, this revival that is taking place not only in America, but also in Europe and around the world. And there is a lot that is out on this Pope, but I am going to believe the best that as we pray, that he will lead with some of his former convictions and ways that hold the teachings of the traditional Catholic Church. We will see good policy and good outcome. I was encouraged that we saw things that he wrote as a bishop in Chilaco, a city in northeastern Peru. He opposed a government plan to add teachings on gender in schools. The promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist, he told the local report. Also, of course, on the Vatican's official news website last year, he said the bishop is not supposed to be a little prince sitting in the kingdom. Rather, he said, a church leader is called authentically to be humble, to be close to the people that he serves, and to walk with them, and even to suffer with them. And so we won't know until a person actually leads and is in that place of responsibility. But I do encourage people, Protestants, Catholics, Orthodox, to pray for this Pope. We know that the Word of God says that thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. When we pray, they said, well, how do we pray? And Jesus said, this is how you pray. Hallowed be thy name. And so we honor God. We're going to lift up this Pope, and we're going to believe that he stands with the convictions of the traditional Catholic Church. We won't know until he actually starts making that policy.
That's true. Yeah, and that's exactly true, Paul. I expect the unexpected, I would say. However, the choice of the name Leo XIV, maybe that's an indication. Leo XIII was considered a transformative pope, was a pope for 25 years at the end of the 19th century and into the first couple, 3 years of the 20th century. Very transformative. He was a person that fought for workers' rights and safe work environments and believed that politics and religion did, in fact, mix. So maybe if we take that as a, some sort of an indication, a tea leaf, if you will, Paula, maybe this Pope thinks that politics and religion should mix as well.
We will see. And, of course, we've read it, that he is believes in social justice and taking care of the poor. And Steve, we can sit here and speculate all day long because there's a lot of mixed things out there, as you said and as you've pointed out. I'm going to do a lot of prayer. I'm going to encourage people not to become the judge until we see the policy. And at that time, it's pretty easy it's never easy, but when you see policy start being made and where he stands in a position of leadership, it's a lot of weight.
Sure.
1.4 billion people that he now represents.
That's a lot of folks. Yeah.
Yes.
And obviously, he had a big connection to South America with his time spent in Peru. Now, one thing that's not in question, Paul, and it's not secret, I'm not breaking any news here, the Catholic Church has financial issues in the Vatican currently. That's pretty obvious. And it's also true that American Catholics contribute more to the kitty, to the offering plate, if you will, than any other group of Catholics in the world. There might have been a consideration there to bring financial stability to the Vatican, and maybe that was one of the reasons he was selected as well. We'll have to wait and see on that. But we do know that the church has some challenges financially, don't they?
Well, it's been reported, and again, when someone's leading, you don't think of these things, that there's a business behind it. There is the financial responsibility that he's going to have to shoulder and carry along with others that are there. Again, we're talking about a very huge part of society. And then there's the spiritual responsibility, the policy. I think as believers and people who are followers of Jesus Christ, we need to pray for the Pope. We need to lift him up. And I do celebrate that he is from America. And I like his stand on, he's a very pro-life. He's made statements that there are only, two genders. It's kind of like our president.
He's very clear on both those points.
So,
Yeah.
so let's see.
Strongly
and
pro-life.
maybe we'll be having this conversation in about a month or 2 or 6. I'm sure we'll continue this conversation. But I tend to do what the Bible says and believe the best in people until they give me a reason not to.
I think that's a good path to follow this Mother's Day weekend, Paula. I think you're exactly right. Some things to consider, some tea leaves maybe, but until things actually happen, we can't really tell you what's going to happen until we can look at it in the rearview mirror. Paula White, Senior Advisor to the White House Faith Office. Always appreciate talking to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Steve, and be blessed.
You as well. She is a joy. Coming up after the break, protests were recently held at a Chicago Holiday Inn that the city converted into a shelter to house illegal aliens, a scheme that has cost the Chicago taxpayers over $150 million. Details straight ahead. Recently in Chicago, a protest was held at a Holiday Inn that has been transformed into a shelter for illegal aliens by the city. In October 2024, the Holiday Inn was converted into a shelter along with another nearby facility, costing the city of Chicago an estimated $160 million. Aside from breaking federal law and costing taxpayers millions of dollars, the shelter seems to have other issues that are catching the eye of experts in the area as well. It was reported that Chicago Fire Department had responded to multiple maternity calls from the shelter, including calls where a woman had a miscarriage without knowing she had a sexually transmitted infection. All of this going on. It's what the taxpayer dollars are going toward in Chicago. Truly unbelievable if it was anywhere else. Here with me to discuss this, a man who was at those protests, the host of Behind Enemy Lines, Terry Newsom. Terry, nice to see you again. Look, Chicago's not too far from me. It's right around the lake from where I sit. And I visit regularly. I used to, I should say. Not so much anymore. Yeah. Chicago has a host of problems. The worst mayor. I thought that Lori Lightweight was a bad mayor. Yeah. Now you got this guy. I mean, good Lord. Things go from bad to worse, it seems, in Chicago, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure has. You know, the illegal immigration challenges and issues used to be in the city. They spread all over the Chicagoland community now. They're everywhere. especially when the original shelter shut down, the original 27. And then this Holiday Inn is one of the old shelters that has reopened under one system initiative, which is a facade by Mayor Johnson to pretend it's for homeless people. He stopped counting the new arrivals. He calls them new arrivals in January. So they don't just want us to know how many new arrivals come. They're pretending that this is for homeless shelters. And then they embed the illegal immigrants in Venezuela. For instance, this hotel is almost all Venezuelans, very little homeless people. And that's the intent, is to hide how much money they are continuing to spend on these illegal immigrants. I just had another FOIA that I haven't even released yet, that had shown a Democratic politician, I forgot the woman's name, for the Northwest suburbs, complaining to the deputy mayor and other folks within the administration of Brand administration, $290 million they got from the state of Illinois. And her response to these people are, I'm very concerned that none of this money is being spent on long-term homeless. And that's a code word for Chicago homeless. And then she goes on to say, I would like to talk to you offline about this, meaning she doesn't want it FOIA'd, because we got access it through FOIA. So now they're still getting money. And even the old Democratic politicians are saying they're using it for
Terry,
Venezuelans.
I got to ask you, it's just like this laundry list of everything that's wrong with Democrat politics, not just in Chicago, but in Democrat cities across this country. Squandering the resources, exploiting the people that live there, ignoring the concerns that they have, whether it's gangs on the corner or illegals taking over what were community centers for the children of the Chicago school district and so forth. Now those are not available for after-school programs because they've been given to illegals. I know, because I saw a lot of moms in Chicago complaining about that over the last couple of years. How do people in Chicago continue to vote for this? Or, Terry, this is the real question, are elections in Chicago just fraudulent? Are they just fraudulent? Since the time of the Daily Machine, is it just fraud? Because nobody would vote for what you're describing. Nobody that's sane would vote for that.
Yeah, Steve, I think Chicago probably invented voter fraud, right, with the unions and the machine. Remember the Chicago machine? I think they really initiated the corruption within that system. I think it still goes on. Not that they really need it, because it's been so infiltrated by leftists and Democrats, corrupt unions, right? But now the minorities within Chicago they're upset. I just had an event with Ben Berquam and Ann Vandersteel. We had 2 Hispanic pastors, 2 African Americans, one from Turn Chicago Red, and they're frustrated. They're fed up. And these people were Democrats, right? They're fed up. So hopefully in the next election,
Terry, who's voting for these people? I mean, Brandon Johnson, Lori Lightweight.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, who votes for these people?
Well, I hope. Well, the Chicago public school systems push Brandon Johnson. They're very powerful. They have lots of money, and they're corrupt as hell. Right. The next election, he only has 6% voter approval, so we will know the next election.
But you'll just get another left winger. You'll just get some other left wing goofball. Do they not understand? Voting for Democrats in Chicago is a losing proposition. Period. Paragraph. Full stop. Which part do they not understand, Terry?
Yeah, I think they're waking. I hope by the next election. This all happened in the last 2 years, Steve. Right? All this corruption, the money. They're able to see it. And I hope there's rumors that Blago might run for mayor of Chicago. Honestly, I hope he does. That's our only chance, because I know he's upset with what the Democrats did to him. I know he is.
Well,
I think.
Of course, he got railroaded. At least. No, but at least he'd have name recognition. He could run as a look. If you run as a moderate Democrat, but you got these people like Brandon Johnson that are radical leftists and activists and so on and so forth. Terry, I feel sorry for you. I mean, I used to go to Wrigley Field and watch the Cubs play and do different things. Loved going to Chicago, saw concerts there, loved it. I don't go anymore. I got to leave it there, Terry. It's too bad.
Yeah, some of those north side areas used to be packed. People take videos and stuff. There's not even cars on the street now in that area that you just talked about. I see it on Twitter, and local guys are going there. Now Brandon Johnson, is hiring a security firm that hires gang members to oversee the Venezuelans in the hotel.
Perfect. What could go wrong with that?
Right?
Anyhow, got to leave it there. Terry Newsom, greatly appreciate you, my friend. Behind Enemy Lines, go find it. You can be enlightened by what he has to say. Terry, thank you. Have a good Friday.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it, man.
All right. So tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble's still ahead. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS is, they're ready to come after you. Every day you wait, it just makes things worse. With over 5,000 new tax liens filed every single day and tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, well, the IRS applying pressure at levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. The good news? There's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got it covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast. Even after the deadline, it's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is completely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. You may have missed April 15th, but you haven't run out of time yet. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move. Now, coming up after the break, I had the opportunity to sit down with Congresswoman Kat Cammack just a bit ago. I'll share what she had to say straight ahead on America's Voice Live. Chance to sit down with Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida's 3rd Congressional District, where we discuss the importance of the App Store Freedom Act. Take a look. Happy Friday. Yeah, it's been another blistering week. I mean, how do people keep up with Donald Trump? I mean, honestly, here's a guy who's 78 years old. He wears me out, and I'm just watching, right?
The short answer is that they don't. The man sleeps 4 hours. He's running circles around his 23-year-old, staffers in the White House. And it's a bit of a running joke up here on Capitol Hill that the man has endless energy, doesn't smoke, doesn't drink. And I think his only vice is Diet Coke.
and Big Macs. Diet Coke and Big Macs. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. You've got some legislation going through here, and I want you to tell us to the folks. This is important. Google is not the 1,000-pound gorilla anymore because there are other options. Elon Musk saying, check out Grok before you go to Google. Don't Google it, Grok it, he says, and there's some truth to that. But pushing the App Store Freedom Act to limit Apple and Google's absolute control over all these apps. I mean, a person can live and die, financially speaking, as a business owner, if Apple or Google say yay or nay to an app, can't they?
Absolutely. This has kind of been the sleeping giant that a few, especially in the industry, have talked about, known about, been very frustrated with, but consumers are just really tuning in to the lack of competition in the space. And they're starting to ask questions, which is, I think, a good thing. You have a situation where if you buy an iPhone, it's your property, right? Well, Apple has the App Store, and you can't put another marketplace on your phone to download the apps. So one of the challenges that we have is, one, having that consumer choice available for people. If you effectively, Google and Apple have an oligopoly on what people can choose from in terms of the apps that they have in those stores. The second thing is on the developer and the app side. You have to pay 30% gross profits of your company to Apple or Google, and that to me is just incredibly wrong. They then control your users' data, so the customers that utilize those apps. And Spotify is a very good example of this. People always wonder why you can't change your membership or doing a transaction through Apple or Google for Spotify. Well, it's because Spotify didn't want to turn over 30% of their profits, but more than that, they didn't want their customers' data to be housed with Apple, where they would have to go and ask permission in order to get their customers' data. So there's a lot of really interesting aspects to this. Many of the courts are stepping in, talking about how there's antitrust issues, there's competition, unfair competition that is taking place. So this is a common sense way that we can address the marketplace, getting back to the core principles of free markets. I think it's a good thing for consumers. I think it's a good thing for startups and apps. And for anyone who says, oh, well, Apple needs to be the sole entity that controls the marketplace for security, spare me. Any marketplace that is housing apps that are malware, spyware, like Temu, TikTok, give me a break. They can use that on someone else who will believe them. But I think this is a very exciting time for competition, especially in
Well, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to have people that could freely enter the market, and either their product survived or failed based on the quality of the product, not on the size of the gorilla that they're fighting against that already has control of the market. And that's the way it's supposed to work. You know, great ideas, at least in my theory of America, are supposed to have a chance to make it to the marketplace. And that doesn't always happen. People get crushed, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, this is just lowering the barrier to entry, allowing people consumer choice, right, of what marketplace they want to use. They should be able to take the Apple Store off of their phone and download the marketplace of their choice. But currently, that's not the case. So this is reducing barriers to entry, fostering competition, and really, we all remember that infamous situation with Parler, the conservative social media app. Apple didn't like what they were doing, so they deplatformed them.
They smashed them.
And took their entire business with them. So that's the kind of power that no one should have. And so This is something to rectify a long time wrong.
I guess the good news for Parler is that they're back. They're trying to come back from, the grave, but it's a hard road back for sure. Now, I want to move on to something else here, maternal health, supporting the Preventing Maternal Deaths Reauthorization Act to reduce maternal mortality. What's this about?
You know, it's something that I've become more attuned to since finding out I'm expecting. I'm 6 months pregnant. And, when I found out back in December that I was expecting, I started, of course, reading more about the journey, the process. And when you're in that realm, you start to pick up on things that have been problematic. It was shocking to me to find out that maternal deaths in this country continue to go up instead of go down. We don't lead the world in terms of best health outcomes for mothers and their children. And to me, that is unacceptable. And along this journey, I've been finding a tremendous amount of issues in this space where, you've got health savings accounts that won't cover any of the doctor's appointments leading up to giving birth, insurance companies that play a ton of games. I can give you some pretty stark examples.
Right. It's time to protect people.
It's pretty shocking.
Yeah. You've got your hands on all sorts of things. I've got a whole list of things here that I would like to ask you about. I'm going to jump to NPR because look, NPR and PBS get a tremendous amount of money from me and you and all the taxpayers. Look, I don't get any money from the government. I have to sit out here and compete for viewership and advertisers. And I don't see that NPR and PBS should be treated any differently. And we spend a lot of money there that I think could be directed to something much more useful. What say you?
Well, you're 100% right, Steve. We spend almost $500 million to fund entities like NPR. And keep in mind, when NPR came about, there wasn't really a lot of options in the space to deliver information across the country. The landscape has changed dramatically. So the original mission set has changed. And then you just look at the unquestionable bias. When you have 87 of your 89 newsroom reporters that are registered Democrats, many of them are Democrat donors, that tells you everything that you need to know. So I don't think that they have proven that they can remain neutral and give a unbiased perspective. They've become effectively a propaganda wing for the Democrat Party. And if that's what they want to do, fine. You just won't do it on the taxpayer's dime.
I agree with that. You know, we talked about how busy Donald Trump is. You're pretty busy yourself. And congratulations, by the way. You say you're 6 months along. But government oversight, the REINS Act, Healthcare Savings, the Access Act, protecting women's sports, you're involved in all of these different things. And next time you come back, you'll have to spend a little bit more time because, well, that's all the time we have for today. Congresswoman Kat Cammack, I always appreciate seeing you. Thank you.
Hey, good to see you, Steve. And yes, REINS Act, most important bill to drain the swamp. We're going to get it through. Thanks for having me, and I hope you have a great weekend.
And there you have it. We'll take a quick break and be back on America's Voice Live. Let's get you on the road to financial sanity, shall we? Under the last administration, Americans got hit hard. Families shelled out an additional $28,000 just to get by, and debt levels hit historic highs. But there's hope on the horizon. There's a new solution designed to help tackle debt and put cash back into your hands. Sounds good, doesn't it? I've invited my friend Jillian Barbery here, a well-known TV personality and done with debt client. Jillian knows firsthand how tough it is to live under the weight of debt, how life-changing it can be to come out the other side. Jillian, nice to see you again.
Always Always great to see you too, Steve, and happy Friday. Yes, I am one of those people who's not afraid to talk about everything involving debt and just being absolutely frightened when it comes to finances. And then you've got the personal side of it where you have anxiety and you're shamed. You don't want to tell anyone. And it's just such a lonely road to be down. And so in my situation, it was a lot of things. So it was, divorce, job loss, and cancer, kind of all at once. And so it really affected my life in the sense that I had a lot of anxiety attacks. I wasn't sure what was happening. I felt very alone. I didn't really talk to anybody about it because I was a single mom, and I'm not going to talk to my little kids about it. But it was really a trying time. So done with debt. What are they? Well, let me tell you, they are lifesavers in many ways, not just getting you back on track, as Steve said, financially, and possibly putting money in your pocket at the end of the day. But it's really a system that it mentally just absolved me of all of the issues around me. I'm talking about the nasty phone calls and the threatening letters that you would get constantly. And it went on for months and months before I contacted Done With Debt. If you are one of those people that are like millions of Americans struggling, we're not judging. We're just saying there is help out there. And the first step is Done With Debt, because honestly, the more time you wait, the more penalties that accrue and the more debt you get in. So that hole gets bigger and bigger. You feel like you're getting dragged down. So Done With Debt, people always say, how fast is it? It's literally go online, go to donewithdebt.com, go and get a free consultation. And then if you decide that it's a whole team you'll have working with you, that you want to do this, and why wouldn't you? It starts literally overnight. The harassing phone calls and letters stop. More importantly, they get their whole team together and they talk to the banking institutions, the credit card companies, and they find everything out there that is going to benefit you in the sense of finances. So some places are willing to completely absolve your debt. I had no idea. You have to talk to them. And I didn't know how to talk to them, and I was afraid to talk to them. So donewithdebt.com got me back on the road to financial freedom. And I'm just so grateful. So don't be afraid to call them and to get online.
I want to give some people some hope here today. Jillian, I want to give people some hope here today. Two things I want to ask you. Number one, how do you get started? And number two, how quickly can people see results? Those are the two questions. Because I've got people watching right now. And it's the dirty secret. Nobody will talk about it, just like you said. It's debt. They don't talk about it. They don't even talk about it with their family sometimes. They just try to hide from it. They try to bury it internally. They don't sleep. They've got stress. How quickly can we see results? How do we get started?
Okay, so the results happen right away. If you go on to donewithdebt.com, get their information, their number, and call them, reach out to them, do it online, get that free consultation. It literally happens for me. It happened overnight. I just noticed that there weren't all these unknown calls, and then the mailbox wasn't as crammed with, these letters now, Steve, they look like real government documents. They've gotten so good, these companies. And so you're freaking out. You're like, who is this? Is this a government agency? And no, it's just, that the company looking like they're very, formal, they're going to put you in jail or something. And it's just not the case. Right. So the stress gets alleviated overnight, and then you get right on track. They'll put it together for you, your whole team. It's like having a personal team.
Folks, I want you to hear that. They get right on it. Right now. Don't go another weekend not sleeping, not resting, trying to hide that dirty secret. Go to donewithdebt.com. Do that now. You owe it to yourself. You deserve some peace in your life. Go to donewithdebt.com. Donewithdebt.com. Jillian, I greatly appreciate you. You're a hope, an inspiration voice in a wilderness of debt confusion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. Have a great weekend. Great to be here. Thank you.
You too. There you have it. When we get back, Amanda Head will be here joining me from the White House. She's be giving us the latest from what's happening there. Straight ahead. An excitement, an American Pope. Interesting stuff. What did Caroline have to say earlier?
Yeah, I love how she combats the mainstream media. President Trump has this big Middle East visit next week. He's heading to Saudi Arabia on, I believe, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then on to Qatar and UAE. And you had a highly antagonistic member of the media asking if there were concerns that President Trump was going to be wheeling and dealing personally as far as, personal business deals. And Caroline Leavitt took the prime moment to capitalize on the past president's business dealings, as we all know, with CEFC in China, among other companies in Ukraine, Romania, Kazakhstan, etc. So the media is obviously trying to have their framing when it comes to even a trip like this, President Trump heading to the Gulf states, where no doubt he is going to fortify a lot of those economic ties. As the president, or as Caroline Leavitt talked about yesterday, and the president, up to $10 trillion worth of foreign investments in this country. And you look at those countries in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE, namely, they have some deep pockets when it comes to investment. So I imagine President Trump is going to come home with quite a few trophies when it comes to benefiting the American people economically.
Well, you look at what happened with the UK. Was that Tuesday, Wednesday this week, whatever day it was? The UK came in first ones to agree to a trade deal. A few details we worked out, but it's a done deal there. That's the first domino to fall. And you think about all these naysayers, whether it's the media or Democrats, Trump's tariffs are going to fail. Not only are they not failing, the market's almost all the way back to where it was. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, Amanda, they were telling us it was the worst Wall Street week in 100 years or some silly thing. Here it is, almost all the way back. If the trade deals get put in place and some of these interest rates come down, 6 months from now, we could be in an economy that's just roaring. I mean, it's that close and that possible, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, we are right on the cusp of that. And I was talking to Kush Desai, Deputy Press Secretary, earlier today, and that's what he was talking about. It's what President Trump's entire negotiating team has been talking about. When you get that one deal that breaks the seal, the seal deal breaker, is the one that, it's a cascading effect for other countries afterwards. President Trump has been an integral part of all of this. In fact, the UK ambassador to the United States said that in the announcement yesterday. Oftentimes you have a trade team like we do with Howard Lutnick as Commerce Secretary and Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary and our trade representative. You have that team, but it's not often that you have the world leader who's in the room, who's having the negotiations, who's stipulating the terms required. But President Trump is that hands-on, and so I think for other world leaders, they're probably going to be a little bit intimidated when they get to the point where pen hits the pad and they say, "Oh my gosh, the president is still here negotiating with us."
He's going to get it done. That's what this is what the people voted for. Amanda Head. I have to leave it there on a Friday. Thank you so much for being here with us. He's going to get it done, my friends. And it's been another big week. Yes, ma'am. It's been another big week here on America's Voice Live. I thank you for sharing some of it with us. I do. Don't forget to start your week on Monday with me on the Steve Gruber Show right here on Real America's Voice. We start the broadcast day every day at about 6. And then we'll be back Monday afternoon for America's Voice Live. Have a great weekend and happy Mother's Day.
tried to shut them up.
There's no guarantee to free speech.
They tried to cancel them.
Deplatforming works.
They even threw them in jail.
Peter Navarro,
Steve Bannon,
now in prison.
But they couldn't stop them.
It's not a prison bill that will ever shut me up.
They call them rebels.
Basket of deplorables.
They call them rogues.
They claim to guns or religion.
And they say they're outlaws.
These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
War Room presents Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws.
You set out to take Vienna. Take Vienna!
The national bestseller by longtime Bannon producer Dan Fluette. Take a journey through the pictorial history of War Room in a culture that celebrates the weak. Show your support by standing with the rebels. Go to doitfluette.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Use the code RAV20 for 20% off your order. Stand with the rebels and never back down.
Well, ring the bell, ring the bell. ICE listed New York Stock Exchange. ICE is the Intercontinental Exchange, New York Stock Exchange. There it is, 4 o'clock. Folks, that means markets are closed. Wall Street closed down. Also means bowling starts. We're open for business right here. Look at the numbers, down 119 Dow. Very, very quiet day. Very anticipatory, let's call it that, because we were hearing potentially there will be a meeting with the Chinese counterparts. Lutnick allegedly and Bessent may be meeting with the Chinese counterparts. Hopefully they are, about a trade deal. That would be super, super helpful. NASDAQ up a touch. Again, let's take a look. Gold still holding about $3,300 an ounce. Oil up again. Don't love that. Obviously, for the economy, we'd like to see it a little lower. Trump talked about oil being under 60. It's hovering right there. Bitcoin. $103,000 for a Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I'll say it again, 103,000. All-time high in Bitcoin is about 107,800 or so. So it's approaching the all-time high. Just is so resilient, like gold is right there. All right, folks, quiet day on the street. Monday, I can promise you, whatever happens, whether they meet or they don't meet, they get a deal or they don't get a deal, Monday, those numbers will be substantially north or south of what you're looking at right there. All righty, today we head to Mexico, to Tijuana, Mexico, to talk with Real America Voice correspondent Oscar Ramirez about President Trump's push to have the Mexican government go after the cartels. Oscar, violence getting better or getting worse? And it's noteworthy that President Trump noted that he would offer support, military support, to Sheinbaum, Mexican President Sheinbaum, and she turned him down. Trump therefore said she is afraid of the cartels. Tell us the state of the cartel's strength at the border now.
Well, the Trump pressure has had an enormous effect on the Mexican government, not only by pressuring with the tariffs and naming the cartels as terrorists, but in the first 6 months of the government of Sheinbaum, knowing that Donald Trump was going to come into office. Yet to know this statistic, more than 758 fentanyl with methamphetamine laboratories have been dismantled, and also more than 13,000 individuals that they were aggressors have been arrested. This tells you that under the Biden administration, this will never be existing. But that, knowing that they have shut down the borders, and knowing that human trafficking and illegal aliens are not crossing massively to open border gaps, the cartel has pivoted and has trickled into their activity as distributing drugs in inner war cities. As you see right here on the images, this was a human corpse that was found right here in Tijuana just yesterday. And also a human head was found in a lighting post with the cartel banner. The president of Mexico has designated Tijuana as one of the most dangerous cities with homicides in the whole country. So the cartel, because they're desperate and because they have been hit in the pockets by the Trump administration, it is now trickling into inner violence inside of the country.
And so they're fighting. The cartel members are killing each other. Cartel members leaving the bodies to be found. They're fighting because there's fewer dollars because Trump is basically closing the border. You can't get so many people smuggled through.
Yes, absolutely. And the market has come down. As you see, under the Biden administration, I walked, covering Real America's Voice News, more than 12 caravans. There's no caravans right now. The flow through the Darien Gap, which we have been in there 4 times, it is 99% decreased, which means it has been hitting in the pockets also to the Cartel del Clan del Golfo, who they have been massively operating, trafficking Chinese people through Turkey, all the way to Ecuador, all the way to the United States of America. It means that the Trump policies are working to secure borders with illegal aliens and illegal crossings, but also it is pressuring the Mexican government and pressuring other governments to handle the security upon their own people. This means that the Mexican government needs to do better. They need to expose the corrupt politicians, that is the real cartel. The corrupt politicians, the ones that they maneuver, the ones that they have the spider web, and their decisions for this to continue into this operation of the cartel in the country of Mexico.
Oscar, do you get the sense that Trump is right? And by the way, we talked to MTG this week. We talked to Ana Paulina Luna this week. We'll get to a soundbite in a second. But they also agree with Trump saying that President Sheinbaum is afraid, in fact, of the cartels.
She's actually afraid, and she doesn't make the decisions. We, as Mexicans, we know that there is a conglomerate of people that they make the decisions. The cartel kingpins, also people that they're the elitists and the globalists that they make the decisions in Mexico, and they're pushing her ultimately to change the constitution. Listen to this. Because she doesn't want to designate the cartels as terrorists, she's willing to change the constitution for only the state to designate them as terrorists and no foreign government. This is how afraid she is, and this is how she is trying to just basically blocked every other government from naming these organizations as terrorists in the country of Mexico.
That's wild. You know, a lot of Americans travel in Mexico. Travel is one of the biggest industries outside of, as you point out, drugs and trafficking. But tourism, listen to Ana Paulina Luna, U.S. Congresswoman from the state of Florida, recommending don't send your kids to Mexico. In fact, for spring break, a lot of people do. In fact, don't even go there yourself. Listen.
You'll see actually in a lot of these tourist destinations, young people, specifically if you have kids, don't pay for your college kids to go down to Mexico to party for spring break. Okay, that's probably the worst thing that you can do. A little bit outside of some of these towns, you're actually even seeing murders in some of these resort destinations. But Mexico, for the most part, is exactly what you would expect in a second world country. They are definitely still tied and embedded with the cartels.
So she went, and she's, by the way, of Mexican heritage, Ana Paulina Luna is, and she said, you don't want to go there. It's terrifying. It's scary. Even some of the other areas. Wayne, do you agree with Ana Paulina Luna? Don't send your kids and maybe don't even vacation there?
100%. We have a problem that is called missing people. There's collective groups right now, the family members, that they're searching for their family members in Mexico because the government has been completely, let me say the word, incompetent to search for the people that they have been abducted, people that they have been, basically kidnapped by the cartel. There has been extermination camps in which they have been found in the central parts of the city and multiple mass graves around the whole borderline. Mexico is just basically a country of full mass grave. This is how I can describe it. The cartel has been bluntly and deliberately, executing and ultimately also extracting and abducting, people, citizens, selling extraction of organs and all this market that is the black market. Yes, cities like Matamoros, cities like Acapulco, cities like Tijuana. It is not safe to travel under the circumstances.
Oscar,
if you're in the wrong spot,
allow me, because
yes,
it's important what you just said there. I mean, 20 years ago, Acapulco was a destination, American destination for families to go enjoy the Pacific Ocean in Acapulco, Mexico, and now you can't do it anymore. And then it was Cancun. There are videos of expensive resorts where cartels will come right up to the resort and shoot people. Video of that. So is Acapulco off limits now? Is Cancun off limits now? God forbid the LA, that whole LA rich people that go to Cabo San Lucas, is that becoming off limits too?
Well, the thing about it is that you're in the wrong neighborhood. You're doing wrong stuff. Wrong things are going to happen to you. But the other thing is that you never know when these random shootings are going to happen. This has been happening in Cabo San Lucas. There has been continuous massive shootings because the cartel, it is fighting upon themselves. This is the actual war that I'm telling you about because of Trump just shutting down human trafficking, and he has completely shut down the market. These cartels are desperate, and they're fighting upon each other, and they do not care if it is a tourist spot, if it is a place that is completely with tourists of international arrival. They do not care. Mexico has right now 5 cities on the top 10 for violence and delinquents and homicides, and those 5 cities, they're complete tourist cities. So it is, for the American people, if they're trying to travel over here, be sure where you travel and be sure to just, watch your surroundings and stay out of trouble. That's what I recommend.
So, Oscar, back, and there's always been violence in Mexico. There's always been drug cartels in Mexico as long as Americans have been buying drugs, and the flow has been south to north. We get that. But for many, many years, decades even, the Mexican government realized that they could lock down certain cities because the tourism would continue to finance the country's needs, obviously. Now it feels like the police in Mexico across the board have thrown the towel in, and every city becomes basically a place that a sane American shouldn't go visit.
It's a narco government, and we have declared like that. And the whole Mexican people are now saying that it's a narco government that is controlled. Just recently in the part of Michoacán and Guerrero, almost 20 military men were ambushed by the cartel, and the president did not say a word on the next day on her morning conferences. This is how bad it is. And everybody needs to declare like that. But what Trump has done has pushed also the right wing and the conservative party in Mexico to rise and to be blunt and to just expose the left-wing political party that is actually governing right here. So there's, things like this sadly need to happen for Mexican people to open their eyes, and how these dirty politicians, those are the ones that need to be held accountable. Those are the ones that they need to be extradited into the United States of America. And those are the ones that need to be judged under the government of Trump right now.
There's a story circulating. 3 Customs and Border Protection agents were arrested for conspiracy of trafficking illegals in their vehicles through the ports of entry. Do you have any information on that?
Yes, Farley Salmonte, Ricardo Rodriguez, and Kyrie Estefania, 3 Customs and Border Protection agents. We're right here behind you see the Customs and Border Protection, Port of Entry in San Isidro. They used to work right here, these 3 agents, and they were, corruptibly pulled in by the cartel, letting in illegal aliens to cross through the particular ports of entry on their particular hours, and they are charged with conspiracy of trafficking illegal aliens through the United States of America. There's 2 things about this. The seriousness and the concern of how the cartel, the audacity to approach a Customs and Border Patrol agent and to make an offer, under the Biden administration. This is the collateral damage that Joe Biden left, the multiple millions of dollars of this profitable business of illegal trafficking. And the other problem is, this is the interior corruption that the Trump administration needs to deal with. How many of these agents are close to the cartel? This is the other fight that nobody else is talking about.
Indeed. Oscar, really good reporting. Appreciate your time and your help, and we're going to stay with you it's still the biggest story. It's still the biggest story around, folks. Oscar Ramirez, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe, my man. Stay safe. Tijuana's a dangerous, dangerous city in good times, and these aren't the best of times. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks. This July, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, Brazil, China, Russia, India, and Iran wants to get involved. Well, they're all meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the official global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, global demand for U.S. dollars will absolutely have to decrease, bringing down the value of every single dollar in your wallet, in your savings account, in your investments. While this transition won't happen overnight, the Rio Reset, as they're calling it, in July marks a pivotal moment when BRICS objectives move from decisively theoretical, a possibility, towards an inevitable reality. Learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. It's right for me. I've done it. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info on gold by texting America to 989898. And with an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Again, text America to 989898 today. All right, before we head to break, just want to remind you about my podcast, YouTube page, which are both updated daily with a bunch of content. Sure, you can hear this show anytime, anywhere. You missed that interview with Oscar Ramirez, you can go watch it again later, but you got to subscribe. Subscribe, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all of those. It's free, always will be. Back in 2.5. not sure what that is. That looks like trees, a little bank, maybe a river. What? Mad Dog, come on. Where is it?
I didn't say it right. It's Reduso, New Mexico.
In New Mexico. Okay, Mad Dog, got it. Great. That looks fake. Is it fake or is it live?
No, it's a live shot.
That's a lot. Those clouds look fake. That's great. It looks like a painting almost. Tax day may have passed, but for millions of Americans, the real trouble is just beginning. If you missed the April 15th deadline or still owe back taxes, the IRS, well, they're ramping up enforcement. Every day you wait only makes things worse for you, with over 5,000 new tax liens filed daily. I said daily, 5,000 of them. And tools like property seizures, bank levies, and wage garnishments, the IRS is applying pressure at all levels we haven't seen in years. Increased administrative scrutiny means collections are moving fast. The good news, there's still time for Tax Network USA to help. Self-employed or a business owner, even if your books are a mess, they've got you covered. Tax Network USA specializes in cleaning up financial chaos and getting you back on track fast, even after the deadline. It's not too late to regain control. Your consultation is absolutely free, and acting now could stop penalties, threatening letters, and even surprise levies before they escalate. Call 1-800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV, R-A-V. You may have missed the April 15th deadline, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help before the IRS makes the next move on you. Okay. Mad Dog, is Ted Nugent ready for us? Is the Motor City Mad Dog ready? Well, by all means, let's not make the Motor City Madman one of the greatest rockers of all time and also one of the greatest patriots of all time. Let's not make him wait. Let's bring in Mr. Ted Nugent. Oh, by the way, hosts a show on RAV as well.
Here I am, Eric. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you now. So a couple of days ago, I get a text from you. Said you have an important story you want to talk about, and we had you booked, and then Trump took the whole hour. He took most of the hour. So we were on way, but we couldn't get to it. Tell us about this story. It's really, living in Florida, I'm very concerned about it. 88-year-old man and dog killed in bear attacks in Florida. Tell us.
Well, Eric, number one, I'm a conservationist. My dad taught me to respect and participate as a hands-on participant in God's miraculous renewable creation. That's why I'm so healthy at 77 years of age in 2025, because I eat venison. It's the only natural, pure, organic diet available to mankind. So I really am tuned in and educated and live the wildlife lifestyle. So I'm engaged in all 50 states where the game agencies, the wildlife agency, Department of Natural Resource agencies, they're completely out of control. And I really love Governor DeSantis, and I love the spirit of Florida. I love everything about it. But the black bear population has been just glaringly, dangerously out of control, overpopulated. There are more black bears in Florida and in North America than ever in recorded history. Now we have a dead old guy and his dog. There are the highest number of nuisance complaints. I mean, literally citizens of Florida calling into the Fish and Wildlife Commission and Governor DeSantis' office where black bears are so overpopulated, they're chasing kids home from rural bus stops. They're killing and destroying livestock at record numbers, costing taxpayers to pay damage control instead of the proven science-based methodology of quality control, which is an annual black bear season. I cannot for the life of me figure out how a great Republican conservative governor like Ron DeSantis has not opened the black bear season when in fact we've been begging to open the bear season for years. Once again, simply to put this magnificent black bear in the asset column instead of in the liability column getting hit by Mercedes-Benz and Lamborghinis in downtown Naples. It's literally so irresponsible that now we have a dead guy and his dog. And again, it's not just one dead guy. These black bears are out of control. So Governor DeSantis, we love you. Open the damn bear season. These magnificent animals deserve that respect.
Ted, does it move as a sliding scale on when it opens and when it closes based on the black bear population? How does that work?
Well, it's really simple. Even guitar players can figure it out. There's a natural, proven, written in stone methodology of sustained yield. What does the turkey? What does the deer? What does the elk? What does the goose season? What do they supply every year? They produce every year. When they have new babies every year, they're using up the habitat that literally doesn't exist. Now, the black bear and the coyote and the wolf and the deer, they're very adaptive. They can live in your garden in downtown Pittsburgh. And they do live in the garden in downtown Pittsburgh, bears and deer and turkey. But what we've proven is that sustained yield, there's a surplus every year of big game animals that absolutely have to be harvested to keep them from being dangerous and slaughtering people on the highways and killing people walking their dogs. So we need to have a season where you use hounds and bait to identify that old male boar, which is readily identifiable. If you have a hound with a bear up the tree, you can tell if it's a sow with cubs. You don't shoot those animals. You shoot the old male bears, which are known as boars, that run the sows and cubs out of the prime habitat into marginal habitat, Immokalee, Fort Myers, Naples, and if you've never run into a bear, that doesn't mean they're not there. The facts are irrefutable. There are more bear in Florida than ever in recorded history, and right now they are in the liability column, a dangerous overpopulation. And the meat on a bear, it is a big game animal that in all states that have bear populations, we have a bear season, but not in Florida. It's really inexcusable, Eric.
Not in Florida. That's what I'm getting at. So, I have a very good relationship with the governor, as you know. We'll make a call. But so this is something that he could do that maybe his folks haven't made him aware of what's going, the extent of the situation.
Yeah, there's no question nobody had made him aware of it, because I know Ron DeSantis would have reacted properly. Just like, I tell you, the most painful reality, Eric, is that the worst governor in America, Governor Murphy in New Jersey, he responded to the dangerous overpopulation of black bears in New Jersey. If Governor Murphy can have a bear season in New Jersey, it boggles the mind that Ron DeSantis hasn't implemented it in Florida. And I'm afraid the Florida Wildlife Commission has not communicated honestly or adequately with the good governor, because had they, there would have been a bear season, and maybe this old guy wouldn't be dead, and maybe our tax dollars wouldn't go to pay ranchers to replay and repay for all the dead livestock.
We're going to make a call after the show, see if we can get Mr. DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, on the show, see if we can get the bear season open and running, and I'm going to use the soundbite from this conversation with my man, Ted Nugent. Ted, before we have a couple minutes, you know me, my favorite song of all time, I got it everywhere, Stranglehold, best rock song ever, bluesy rock, ballady, meaningful song, Stranglehold. You have a Stranglehold tour coming up. Tell us about it.
What a sexy, cool song. It's so much fun to play that.
I have chills. I swear on my life. Yes. I have chills on my arms listening to that. True, absolute true story.
I have a bunch of Uncle Ted speakeasies where John Kutz on drums and Johnny Big on bass, Jason Hartless. We're going out. Eric, it's 2025. I'm 77 this year. I am having more outrageous fun with the most unbelievable guitar tone and guitar musical adventure. This is unbelievable, of my life. The audience go berserk. We got old people older than me, little boys and girls it's the best musical year of my life, and it's the 50th anniversary of Stranglehold. We have a Stranglehold t-shirt, 50th anniversary, available at tednugent.com. It's the music keeps me alive, Eric, especially that song.
That song and so many others, Ted. Like I said, we Wang Dang Sweet Poontang.
It's all good. Unbelievable licks.
Can you hit that high note?
My feet don't touch the ground.
Can you hit that high note still? That scream. You got that primal scream. That is just, I remember. If you're going to be down in Florida somewhere, I'm going to absolutely show up on this tour for sure. For sure.
Well, thanks, Eric. Well, we're playing a bunch of dates in Michigan, right here in Texas. Again, the audiences are just on fire. There's such positive energy. It's a dream. Plus, we have a Nuge Vault. Go to nugevault.com, and you'll see the first rehearsal sessions of the Amboy Dukes and the Damn Yankees, and the song Stranglehold, how it came out of a jam session with a buddy of mine in Detroit.
That's awesome.
The Nuge Vault, they're discovering stuff that I look back and I go, my God, that's 70 years ago. What a riot this has been. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. Thanks for letting me celebrate it with you.
Oh, I want to celebrate with you. I want to continue to celebrate that celebration with you. I'm going to absolutely head to one or more of your tour stops. And I guess we can say it now. If Andrea Mitchell on CNN can say big balls, I guess I can say some of the names of the songs that you've written, because I'm just stating fact here, folks.
Yeah, Wang Dang Sweet Poontang is the greatest love song ever. Go ahead and celebrate that stuff.
Or yank me, crank me, but don't wake up and thank me. That's another one.
That's great stuff. What a riot.
I love you, Ted. Ted Nugent, everybody.
Back at you, Jerry. God bless you, my friend.
Talk to you soon, folks. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Mad Dog, where are the locators on these live cams? What's happening here?
Oh, I forgot it.
Looks like a tree, a little garden. Is that your parents' garden?
No, it's actually Naples, Florida.
Naples, Florida. Okay, got it. All right, folks, it's been one of those weeks. I'm left with plenty of unanswered questions, as I'm sure you do. Question of the day today: do they think we're stupid? So first, in an effort to get out in front of a rewriting of the Biden legacy, the big guy is making the rounds. Some call it a revenge tour. Some call it the cleanup tour. I call it dumb and delusional tour. Joe and his handler, Dr. Jill, who holds Weekend at Bernie's up with a broom, joined him yesterday on, of all places, The View. And they tried pathetically to do cleanup on aisle 9 over Joe's obvious slip into dementia. And I say obvious to us, but apparently not to them. He couldn't defend his failures. He claimed he could have beaten President Trump if he just stayed in. That's laughable. He claimed Kamala Harris lost because of sexism and racism and not because she was the worst presidential candidate in modern history. And when he couldn't answer the question about his cognitive issues, well, Dr. Jill had to jump in and rescue him. Some of the moments right here.
The project, the benefits. How do you lead the world without having best infrastructure? Yeah, he still got 7 million fewer votes.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of people didn't show up. Mm-hmm. Number one. Number two, they're very close in those toss-up states. He's had the worst 100 days any president's ever had.
Yeah, that's a fact. Yeah.
They went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I mean, it really, I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race, unable to deal with a lot of just basic issues, and which I won't go into in the interest of time. And so we went to work, and we got it done. And one of the things that
Alyssa, one of the things I think is that the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us.
Saved by the doctor, with air quotes. By the way, interviewing a man who's clearly in cognitive decline about whether he was in cognitive decline and then having his wife answer for him when he exhibits cognitive decline is absurd. That's delusional. So delusional, in fact, that we need a new word for it. Newsflash, that's neither news nor flash. Every single American turned on Joe by the time that debate rolled around. The entire leftist machine abandoned old Joe. And now even the likes of Jake Tapper trying to tap into making some money off the failure of the entire mainstream media to actually do their job. So what does Jake Tapper do? Well, Jake has a book coming out in a few weeks, and it's all about Joe Biden's slip into dementia and the cover-up, right? So what does he do? He has Alyssa Farah, one of the hosts from The View, come on his show after the Joe and Jill tour of pathetic hit show on Thursday. Watch.
What was your general impression of President Biden, what you heard from him, how he spoke, et cetera?
Listen, this is the second time I've interviewed President Biden now, and the one thing that really struck me from the moment he got to the table was he and his team are clearly very aware that his legacy is being written right now, and they feel and have this strong sense that they need to fight back and shape the narrative.
Yeah, so Alyssa Farah didn't actually answer the question, does she? He's asking her for an impression about how Joe Biden seemed mentally, cognitively, given his mental decline that we all know about beyond the shadow of a doubt. The real answer Alyssa Farah should have used or said, or rather the real answer Jake was looking for was, he didn't look too good at all, Jake, so your book is safe to hit those shelves. Maybe the question shouldn't be, do they think we're stupid? But more specifically, does Jake Tapper think we're all stupid? Maybe he thinks his own audience is stupid, because they are. There's a clear issue here, which is that while Joe Biden tries desperately and ineffectively, by the way, to change the narrative, the media is now not only pretending they had no clue about Joe's decline, but they're trying to clear their own legacy by putting it all on the White House. Nice try. You're all complicit. Media, White House, Democrats, progressives, elected officials on the Democrat side. Jen Psaki, who says, I'm not a doctor, I couldn't tell he was sliding. BS. You're all complicit. You're all lying. You're all treasonous jackals. You all lied to the American people about an inept, degenerative man who was the leader of the free world, getting worse and worse as time went on. The answer to my question is yes, they think we're stupid, but we're most definitely not stupid. Another question of the day. How many crimes does an illegal alien need to commit before a Democrat falls out of love with that illegal? Abrego Garcia was in America illegally. That's not enough for them. Abrego Garcia was a confirmed member of the MS-13 gang. That's not enough for them either. Abrego Garcia was an abusive husband. His wife filed charges of domestic abuse more than once. Let's give him another one for that. But that's still not enough for them. Abrego Garcia was involved in human trafficking And that still is not enough for them. What does it actually take for a Democrat to stop loving an illegal who invades this country? Apparently, more than even that.
And specifically, can you answer as to whether you have reached out to your counterpart in El Salvador to facilitate Mr. Abrego Garcia's release?
Abrego Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador and should never have been in this country and will not be coming back to this country. There is no scenario where Abrego Garcia will be in the United States again. If he were to come back, we would immediately deport him again because he is a terrorist, he's a human smuggler, and he is a wife beater.
You've read the Supreme Court decision. Does the Supreme Court decision not require you to facilitate the return of Mr. Abrego Garcia?
It doesn't matter. Terrorist, wife abuser, doesn't matter. Bring him back, they say.
Simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders to make sure that we...
So you are, because the court ordered that you facilitate his return. So you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question. But what I would tell you is that we are following court orders and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
These dumbass senators. These dumb-ass senators. Couldn't agree more, Secretary Noem. Well, how about this one? Another question of the day. Why is it okay to charge people hundreds of dollars for zero effort? Another peg in the fall of Hollywood. Diddy on trial, about to take down an entire industry that is collectively hiding under their sheets, petrified of being exposed for the vile hacks they really are. And Katy Perry exemplifies the downfall of Hollywood. Self-righteous, self-important. They used to just come out and endorse a presidential candidate. Now they get paid millions of dollars to do it, telling Americans to vote for the ill-equipped Marxist degenerate who wants to raise their taxes. Katy Perry goes on a ride to space that costs millions, spends 10 minutes up there. I'm not even sure space, just high up in the sky. Makes it seem like she saved an entire generation of women in the process, and all she's really doing was promoting her music tour and robbed many people of hundreds of dollars so she could poorly execute a Jane Fonda exercise video on stage in glitter and whatever outfit that thing is supposed to be. Final question of the day. Is there anything more exciting than retribution? Now that there's an official investigation into Letitia James and her possible mortgage fraud, don't moments like this just feel sweeter than ever?
My message is simple. No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
Hear that? No one is above the law.
My question is for Tush James. Will you apologize to President Trump for wasting millions of dollars and the state of New York for a witch trial? And how does it feel to know that you will be imprisoned for mortgage fraud?
Someone give that man a beer. We'll see you in court, Letitia. 2.5 minutes. We'll be back. I'll take the Vatican City. We saw that yesterday. The new Pope, Leo the 14th, from Chicago, by the way, dual citizen also, but from Chicago. And I just like to know that being from Chicago, the scoreboard shows Chicago 1, Green Bay 0 still. All right, folks, let's talk about Bernie Sanders for a second and his ignorant granddaughter, AOC, just kidding about the granddaughter part, who've been jetting all over the country to fight back against American progress and prosperity. Of course, they only fly private, and when it comes to their travel, these highbrow frauds couldn't care less about the green dream BS that they pretend to prioritize. Well, here's Bernie proving that point.
5 rallies in a week, the only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future.
No apologies. Millionaires and billionaires, right? No, when it's him, no apologies, but everyone else, you're an oligarch, you're a millionaire, you're a billionaire. We want to take you, don't want to tax you more. What about you, Bernie, and your 3 or 4 homes, your private jet? This is exactly why you can't trust any Democrats. They pretend to care so much about these pointless issues, but then completely flip-flop, change sides when they're either inconvenienced or asked to do any work. Here's more from old Bernie, who's basically held every possible stance on climate change over the years.
Today we say to Donald Trump and the fossil fuel industry that climate change is not a hoax, but is a massive threat, an existential threat to our country and the entire planet.
Your question has said, what are we going to do in decades? We don't have decades. But the scientists are telling us that we don't get our act together within the next 8 or 9 years. We're talking about cities all over the world, major cities going underwater.
You run a campaign and you do 3 or 4 or 5 rallies in a week, the only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that.
If being a hypocrite would actually get you votes, this guy would be president by now. My big issue here is not that the Dems prefer to fly privately. Fine, you got the money, do it. Trust me, I understand the concept of campaign travel. It's been done for decades. My issue is that these big-name climate crazies have all been exposed as complete hypocrites, like Lizzie Warren, Pocahontas, who you're watching right now, right there, coming right at your screen. She was spotted flying private, and tried to literally hide from the cameras. The whole world saw her, yet the very next day, it was like nothing to see here, folks. Democrats can do no wrong, especially in their own minds. Jazzy Jasmine Crockett engaged in a Trump derangement syndrome fueled, completely insane interrogation during a congressional hearing where she basically tried to blame every issue in America that's going wrong on President Trump. Got to listen to it to believe it.
So, Miss Goss-Graves, I want to play a game. It's called Trump or Trans. You ready? Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to tell me whether or not it is Trump or trans people that are responsible. You understand?
Got it.
Okay, very good. The first one, gutted medical research.
Trump.
Kidnapping Americans and sending them to foreign countries, a.k.a. deporting them.
Trump.
Driving us into a recession.
Trump.
Increasing the cost of everything.
Trump.
Waging an idiotic tariff war.
Trump.
Harming farmers.
Trump.
Ignoring the Constitution.
Trump.
Proposing to take away Social Security.
Trump.
Cutting health care.
Trump.
Firing government workers who keep our country safe.
Trump.
Encouraging an environment of hate and divisiveness.
Trump.
Thank you so much.
Jasmine, I want to play a game too. It's called Dumb and Dumber. You and AOC, which one's dumb and which one's dumber? Jasmine Crockett went on relentlessly bashing the president with statements that range from borderline true to downright wrong. Here's a bit more from one of the worst congresswomen this nation has ever seen.
This committee could be engaged in actual oversight of fraud, waste, abuse, and mismanagement. So let's talk about waste. Like Trump's plan to spend almost $100 million for his little birthday parade, or how he spent 25% of his first 100 days golfing, costing taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. In fact, it's a little bit over 30 million at our last estimation. In fact, President Trump is on pace to spend more than $1 billion of taxpayer dollars just on golfing. Yet the Republicans have been silent. So they must think spending taxpayer dollars on the president's golfing trips is more important than providing health care to their constituents. And when I talk about constituents, we don't talk about the ones on this committee.
Did she say $1 billion on Trump's golfing? Okay. Sure, Jazzy. Anytime. Let's do a debate. Ready for you. In other news, Dan Goldman, the congressman from New York, is still whining about Joe Biden. He thinks Donald Trump is going to try and take credit for all the great things that old, demented Joe did for America. Listen to this.
Well, look, I am a great admirer of President Biden. I think he will ultimately go down as one of the most consequential presidents because of all of the legislation he was able to pass in his first 2 years and the incredible work he did on the international stage on his second 2 years. As some of the other seminal legislation is actually implemented, Americans are going to benefit from it. You can be sure that Donald Trump will take full credit for it. But it was Joe Biden's vision and his desire to do the right thing rather than the politically expedient thing that ultimately, I think, sacrificed some of his favorability.
All right.
What credit for what did Biden do? There's nothing to take credit for that disastrous 4 years. All Biden did was prove he's the worst president in the history of American politics ever. Jimmy Carter rolling his grave, thanking Joe Biden. Well, fake Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, is another Democrat who can't seem to snap his head on straight. Here he is blaming Trump, of course, for the condition of America's airports, an issue that dates back into the Biden era, got worse with every move former President Biden made. But listen to Hakeem, fake Obama Jeffries.
We do know that the Trump administration has decimated the FAA in a variety of different ways, and they've been doing this from the very beginning. They are breaking the federal government, and as part of breaking the federal government, the Trump administration is breaking the FAA.
They're all deranged. They all just want to blame Trump for everything. Remind me to stay the hell away from Salt Lake City. These people are so dead set on their LGBTQ agenda that they went and changed the city's flag to a pride flag to dodge Utah's flag banning at government buildings. Listen to this ridiculous reasoning.
I want each and every resident to look up at any flag that flies at City Hall and be reminded that their community values belonging and acceptance, and that their community values every one of them. Let the Sago Lily send a simple but powerful message. Salt Lake City is here for you. We believe in you, and we love you.
Salt Lake City is like the Mormon capital of the United States, right? What do the Mormons feel about that? I have no idea. Hit me up on one of the chats or on my social media. I'm dying to know what they think about changing the Salt Lake City flag, the official flag of the city, to a pride flag so that they can fly the flag at all times. Absolutely crazy. Nuts, crazy. Nuts, folks. All right, we'll be back. I can hear the music. They're telling me. We'll be back. 2.5 minutes. Mad Dog, I have to. Dog, can I get the full control room camera for a second here? I got to ask you something. Now, folks, he got my ear because I can't see something. Before the show comes on, I can't see the picture because it's small up in the corner of one of my monitors over there. So he tells me it's like San Francisco. And then what did you say right before when you said San Francisco? I think I see what?
I think I see a volcano. Not too sure.
Yeah, you don't see a volcano. There's not a volcano in San Francisco. This might be a little hill, maybe a little ridge, but I don't think it's a volcano. If we're in Hawaii, you see a volcano. Mad Dog, I love it. And there are the other folks. There's Ben and the rest of the team. All right, guys, welcome back. Just wanted to remind you all about my podcast and YouTube page, which are both updated every day. You can hear the show. Tons of other content anytime, anywhere. You missed an interview, you want to hear Ted Nugent again, go subscribe to that on YouTube and also Apple and Spotify, anywhere else. It's always going to be free. All right, let's bring in War Room chief correspondent who's actually hosting tonight again, Natalie Winters, getting a lot of airtime in the hosting seat. Natalie, good to have you join us for the toss. Let's take a listen.
Hey, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Let's take a listen to Caroline Levitt. She had a briefing. I thought there were some really, really cool moments. She briefed the members of the media this afternoon, and she called out 2 reporters. Take a look.
Given that you noted he is a successful businessman, do you know if the president has any plans to meet with any of the folks involved with any of the family businesses over there or see any of the sites that are going to be
Not to my knowledge, and let me just get to the premise of your question that both of you have raised. I think it's frankly ridiculous that anyone in this room would even suggest that President Trump is doing anything for his own benefit. He left a life of luxury and a life of running a very successful real estate empire for public service, not just once, but twice. And again, the American public reelected him back to this White House because they trust he acts in the best interest of our country and putting the American public first. This is a president who has actually lost money for being president of the United States. I don't remember these same type of questions being asked of my predecessor about a career politician who was clearly profiting off of this office. That is not what President Trump does, and this White House holds ourselves to the highest of ethical standards.
You know, it's one of those mic drop moments. She's really, really talented. We got to love Caroline Levitt. Natalie, what are your thoughts on her going after reporters for stupid questions?
Well, I mean, it's pure projection, right? They had, 4 years? I mean, I don't know, the name Hunter Biden maybe comes up in the discussion of people profiting off of political office. But look, Eric, I think it's even more sinister than just, the legacy media being petty. This is, I think, their sort of decades-long crusade to paint him as this nascent, authoritarian, this autocrat, this dictator. Turn on MSNBC, that's every other word that you'll ever hear as they describe him, because it's the only way that in their worldview, where despite pretending to love democracy, having to reconcile that with the fact that President Trump, like she alluded to, overwhelmingly won the popular vote, right? So they have to justify these sort of outside the system opposition and regime change tactics. And I think one of the ways that they've always done that is by depicting him as, self-enriching or as some autocratic person profiting off of the office. I
apologize for jumping and cutting you off, but we have tape of this is tape playback, right, Mad Dog? This is live. Here he is, President Trump.
President, as you said, we have 4 bills for your attention today. These are bills that have been passed by Congress. In the closing days of the Biden administration, they pushed through a large number of rules and regulations that really hurt ordinary Americans, including in their own homes. So the first of these is HJR 20. This is a bill that repeals Biden-era regulations relating to consumer water heaters, consumer gas-fired water heaters.
Who was in charge of this one?
This is Gary and myself, sir. Gary Palmer sponsored it, but this bill specifically saves a factory in my district. 300 Georgians will continue to have their jobs as soon as you sign that.
Mr. President, this rule was issued on Christmas Eve, thinking that we wouldn't be keeping up with what the Biden administration was doing, but we moved quickly to get
and
this
was
bill
on gas heaters.
Banning natural gas.
Isn't that ridiculous? And how were you supposed to get your heat then? Through electric? That's through electric. Yeah. Was that basically electric heat, which isn't as good? Crazy. You Gary, hold that up. Brian, hold that up. You guys were great.
Thank you, Mr. President.
No sense. Just no sense. But in addition to that, you have a lot of workers that lose their job, right?
Yes, sir. 300 workers
Crazy.
saved because of you.
Good, thank you. It's an honor. Here's the Golden Dome, by the way, if you're interested. Here's the Golden Dome. It'll save all your lives someday, maybe. Okay, good. Thanks, Ron. You hold it up.
Yes, sir.
Next, Mr. President, we have House Joint Resolution 24. This is the same basic idea, but this relates to walk-in coolers and freezers and other refrigeration devices. Again, last-minute Biden-era regulation that hits ordinary Americans hard.
And what do they do?
They put in...
They increase the energy efficiency requirements for walk-ins, coolers, and freezers, and therefore putting an undue burden on businesses across the country. Everything from restaurants to pharmacies, hospitals. Were
to
all
a point where it didn't
impacted.
work. In other words, they made the restrictions so strong that it didn't work.
And it was going to cost them so much money to actually meet the energy efficiency standards, which didn't really save much money. So this is going to actually help our small businesses across the country, Mr. President. Many manufacturers would have had to close stop lines, shut down entire lines of businesses. And I just want to say, rescinding these, this was done days before you took office. They pushed through these regulations. They didn't think about the cost to businesses. They didn't put American interests first. They didn't put American businesses first. I am so grateful we finally have a president who's not only walking back these insane, burdensome regulations that are ultimately going to cost us Americans and American businesses, but that you are thinking about the next generation. And as we're leading into Mother's Day, some of us are trying to parent and serve this country at the same time. Thank you for welcoming my son, who's 15, with his mother serving, watching what we're doing for him and generations to come. You are making this country stronger for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck, right? Take care of your mom. Okay, let me have that. You want to hold that up there? So you can... It's a big one, isn't it? Huh? Common sense. It's all about common sense, right? Okay, Will, go ahead.
Next, sir, this is House Joint Resolution 42. Again, this is a rescission of a Biden-era regulation, in this case relating to energy conservation standards for household appliances and certain consumer products. Is this yours?
Yeah, it is.
That's a good one. I know who's over there. I know who did this. Explain that, please.
Sure. Look, this is helping fight inflation because the cost of the burden on appliance manufacturers is going to drive up the cost of them producing household products, which means that when you go buy a washer, dryer, any appliance, it was going to drive up the cost for consumers. It reduces consumer choice. But in the bottom line, we've been trying to fight inflation. This fights inflation. This takes the cost out of producing these products that Americans need every day. And when you add all this up, it's one regulation here, one regulation there. They always say it's de minimis, but when you add it all up, it costs a lot to American consumers, and this is fighting back.
And it's not as good.
And it's not as good.
Not nearly as good, not nearly as efficient, and more costly. Other than that, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you very much. Great. Fantastic. Okay.
And lastly, sir, we have House Joint Resolution 75. Again, this is a rescission of a Biden-era regulation, in this case relating to energy standards for commercial refrigerators, freezers, and refrigerator freezers.
Do you have the sink one in here? The sinks and shower heads?
We have an executive order on that coming for you later, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
coming when?
Later this afternoon.
Okay, good. You going to be around later this afternoon? Good. Sinks and shower heads, where you buy a home and you have a new shower head and you don't get any water. The water doesn't come out of the sink. The water comes out of nowhere. What a shame. What a ridiculous waste. Okay, let me do this. Come here. Who's responsible for this?
This
Will?
is mine, Mr. President.
Oh, good man
Yes,
here.
sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to discuss that?
Yes, sir. This was a government regulation that we have now repealed. Thank you very much, Mr. President. That now saves the American taxpayer. I was getting ready to say the Texas taxpayer, them too, but the American taxpayer, because
who would have ultimately paid the price on a government mandate and a government regulation? The people of America. So you just say the American taxpayer money. So thank you very much.
That's fantastic. Thank you. It's a great job. Okay, any questions?
Mr. President, airline said today that the 10% baseline tariff on all countries is here to stay, even after the deals are done. Does that mean that countries offering zero tariffs won't get reciprocity?
You are going to always have a baseline. I mean, there could be an exception at some point. We'll see. Somebody does something exceptional for us. That's always possible. But basically, you have a baseline of a minimum of 10%. And some of them will be much higher, 40%, 50%, 60%, as they've been doing to us over the years. We had a wonderful deal yesterday. We have 4 or 5 other deals coming immediately. We have many deals coming down the line, and ultimately we're just signing the rest of them in. But we always have a baseline of 10%.
And then specifically on the possibility of an increase in taxes on wealthier Americans, what do you say to conservative Republicans who argue that this is an increase on small business owners?
Well, what we're doing is we're actually, if we ever did that, it would only be, and from what I hear, people would love to do it, rich people. I would love to do it, frankly, but what we'll do is that, they'll go around saying, oh, this is so terrible. What you do it is you're giving up something up top in order to make people in the middle income and the lower income brackets save more. So it's really a redistribution. And I'm willing to do it if they want. I would love to be able to give people in a lower bracket a big break by giving up some of what I have. But I'll tell you, a lot of people say don't do it because of the fact that you have the Bush statement about read my lips. But he lost because of Ross Perot. He didn't lose because of that statement.
And then on the salt.
But I don't think they're going to be doing it. But I actually think it's good politics to do it where richer people give up. And it's a very small, it's like a point. But they give it up to benefit people on a lower income.
And then on the SALT tax credits, Mr. President, there are some Republicans who say, why is it that these 45 other states should be paying taxes to alleviate the tax burden of New York?
It's only because those states are behind, very badly behind, and those people were affected very badly. And, the sad part is oftentimes they were affected badly because you had bad management of those states, like in California with Newsom and, people. So you had some bad management. But that's being worked on now, and they may do a piece one way or the other. It's a very complex issue, but I think it's being worked out. I think it's going to be worked. It has not been settled yet, but they'll settle it up pretty quickly.
Are you considering